Hi, everybody. Elizabeth here. So today we will be talking about inflammation. So how does it happen and what we can do about it? And we have a guest today, Mr. Huntley, and he will share his story about how he had the inflammation and what he did in order to solve it, reduce the inflammation, and heal his gut and his whole body. So welcome, Mr. Huntley.
Hi, Elizabeth. Just quickly, that's my first name and my second name is Roberts. So yeah, okay, it's Huntley Roberts.
Yeah,
how are you today? You okay?
Yeah, we're all fine. So we want to hear more about you, about your story, about your sickness and what you did. So and explain what kind of inflammation you had with your research. What did you find out, and how did you ruin your gut health, and what happened after that? Yeah,
right.
You're welcome
Okay.
to
Thanks,
share.
Elizabeth. Okay. Well, I just got to rewind the clock quite a few years. It's probably a good 15 years ago at least now. And I started to notice that I was getting headaches across my eyes and pressure behind my eyes, particularly in this eyeball. So obviously I did the natural thing. I reached for the cupboard. I got the painkillers, which relieved it a little bit. But this continued to happen for some time. So then I naturally took the next step, which we all do, is to go to the doctor, thinking that they're going to help me and cure me. And all they gave me was painkillers. And eventually they gave me stronger painkillers till I had a morphine-based painkiller, which basically just left me comatized. So we never got to the root cause of the problem. So I had to kind of live with the regular waking up in the morning with pressure behind my eyes here, particularly in this eyeball and going through my head, to the point that I couldn't work. And quite often I used to wake up and actually be sick. And sometimes I even got a nosebleed because of it. So it was pressure behind the eyes. So naturally I started to think, there's something quite serious going on here. So I pursued with just doing what I could to address the problem, which was pretty much just take painkillers, which started to wear off and not work. And at the time I was working in London. So I was commuting from my hometown to London. And that would take me around about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to workplace, and then about 2 hours to get back. So as time went on, of course, I started to get quite tired and my body was getting under stress. Getting enough rest was a problem. So of course that was starting, unbeknown to me, to affect my immune system. And then unfortunately, then I was in a very unpleasant position that I caught pleurisy. Now, I don't know if anybody knows much about pleurisy, but it's a condition in the lung, and it's usually an infection, and it affects the pleural lining, and your lungs move up and down when you breathe. When the infection gets in there, it can dry it out and create like a scraping, like it's like two bits of glass paper scraping together. So when you actually breathe, it feels like you're being stabbed with a knife. Not that I've been stabbed with a knife, but I would imagine that's pretty much what it's like. So again, not knowing exactly what that was, I came home, went to bed, and the next morning felt like I had flu. It was getting very hot, so I stayed in bed naturally, took the painkillers again, and it took about 3 days, and I went downhill really, really fast. And to be perfectly honest, it was in a life-threatening condition because it got so bad, the infection was so bad. So my wife called the doctor. Doctor came out because I couldn't even move. I couldn't get out of bed. I could hardly breathe. And he said, "You've got pleurisy and you need antibiotics now," to the point that I'm thinking of hospitalizing you and putting you on intravenous antibiotics. However, luckily I didn't, but I had a very strong course of antibiotics and I needed them for 3 weeks. So that managed to just about get rid of the infection. And that battle had been won, and obviously saved me from fate, as it were. But unfortunately, that opened up a new can of worms and a new battle. And that new battle was my gut health. So after having suffered this, I was in a situation where I needed to start bulking up again because I lost a lot of weight through the infection. So I'm going and buying myself some shiitake mushrooms cordyceps mushrooms in a tablet form to try and build up the immune system. I'm using whey protein to try and bulk up and put on some weight. And all this was making me even worse. I was getting headaches again. I was then suffering from the dreaded thrush, which is obviously very unpleasant for both men and women. And it was just purely by fate that I met a lady who happened to be in the shop where I was buying these products, and she did intolerance testing. And she just happened to notice me purely by chance. And she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Well, not really. I've just got over pleurisy." She said, "Have you just had antibiotics?" I said, "Yeah, very strong course, and I'm not in a good place." So anyway.
Just to summarize, so actually you, with the medicine, with the antibiotics, with these painkillers, you healed one problem, but you caused another problem. From the medicine, you got gut dysbiosis, you got disbalance. So actually from the antibiotics, you kill the good bacteria in the gut, so the fungi and the bad bacteria start to flourish and cause problems, right? And that's why you get the skin rashes, because that's, and you took mushrooms, which is the worst thing you take for the skin rashes. Yeah. So what happened next?
Well, once I'd established, I'd had the intolerance test. Once I established that I found that I was intolerant to various foods, especially dairy, I had to, first of all, I had to address the problem of, one, getting rid of the intolerances, and two, trying to recover my good gut health. And to do this, I had to change my whole diet. And it was fairly drastic, because obviously when you're battling something like candida and all the yeasts and the molds, etc., you can't have things like mushrooms, of course. You can't have any form of sugar, which of course included things like white potato. So I had to really, really take a pretty savage turn in my diet. So all the dairy had gone, all the sugar went, and I had to kind of work around. Everything was organic, and still is, I may add. So sat down with a diet sheet and then pursued this diet sheet, which obviously, as I said, was cutting out all those refined carbohydrates, all the simple sugars, and obviously the dairy because of the intolerances. And believe me, doing that was really, really tough. But
I know
there is a big but in this. It wasn't the end of the world, because I started to notice that the way forward was cleaner organic foods. So that was the first step. So I pursued this diet, but in the meantime, a friend of mine, I say he's a friend of mine, I only met him about 3 years ago, and he said to me, "Have you ever considered organic bone broth?" And I said, "No." I didn't know anything really about organic bone broth, so he said, "Well, I would suggest that you get the organic bone broth, because it's an old-fashioned remedy that people used to use years ago. They used to boil up the bones, and literally all the goodness from the bone marrow, etc. And they used to make like a stock, and they used to put it on their food, a bit like gravy." So he said, "Look, this is really going to help your gut, because it's going to line the gut walls, because it's like collagen." So, okay, I said, "I'll take your advice on that." So along with the bone broth and this great diet and keeping to everything organic, I started to see results. But the thing I had to do is I had to commence probiotics. Now, the probiotics I was using were obviously the ones that were formulated in the laboratory, kept refrigerated, and I started to use them high strength ones, and they were fantastic. And eventually, after about 7 or 8 months, I started to feel a lot better, started to look better, and everything started to come back to where it should have been. However, because obviously these probiotics, they're wonderful things, but of course, because they're produced in a safe environment, when they go into our gut, of course, as you well know, Elizabeth, it's a bit like this kind of Girl Guides going in and taking on the American army. It's a hostile environment, and it's the first time they've been in there. They haven't flourished, they haven't been nurtured in our gut. So all the time I was taking them, it was fine. So then I've got the okay, yeah, your candida's gone, your yeasts have gone, and all this. Your gut health appears to be good. Within a month, straight back down again. I'd relapse straight back into the candida, the molds, the yeast, the problems, the skin rashes, the headaches, straight away, straight back down again. So I'd go back onto the probiotics, get back again to where I was. Great, everything's good. Stop the probiotics, relapse down again. So it was an ever decreasing circle of, okay, 1 minute, bad gut health the next. Okay, 1 minute, bad gut health the next. And, you know, it was kind of like getting me down because I felt like I was fighting a losing battle.
So you were doing all the good things. You were eating organic. You were avoiding dairy, sugar, everything. So you changed your eating habits. You introduced like probiotics, bone broth, and other supplements, and still it was not there yet, right? So there was something missing. Something was going on that you were not aware of, right?
Well, this is correct, yes. Yeah. And so this was an ongoing battle for about, must be 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
But I was always kind of keen to sort of do the right thing, and eating organic is something I'm really adamant about now. So rewinding back about 2 years, a friend of mine introduced me to certain products, and this is where I'm now going to come into the chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
And how I feel that this was a major aspect in my health generally and my gut health. So when I was introduced to these products, as per usual, I kind of was a little bit kind of skeptical and a bit reticent about it, because I've used many products from health shops over the years, and to be perfectly honest with you, whether they really had any effect or not remained to be seen.
Yeah,
as I say, the probiotics were...
Yes, inflammation was going on all the time. So
yes,
yeah,
unbeknown to me. So I was totally unaware. However, I always felt like I wasn't feeling right all the time. Some days I'd be okay, other days I wouldn't, but generally speaking, I wasn't really where I knew I should be, but I couldn't really nail it.
So there was constantly some inflammation in the body, which was caused by disbalance. So something was not okay. So body was fighting something all the time, and couldn't fix it by its own. So it needed to be to edit some more supplements or some changes in your eating habits, lifestyle, something. So what happened next?
Right. Okay. So what happened next is a good friend of mine introduced me to these products, and as I said to you, I was a little bit skeptical about products because I've taken so many over the years and I've had all these problems. And when the probiotics were working, then they weren't. I was very skeptical. So okay, I said, let me hear what you've got to say. So we had a good chat, and he introduced me to what you call the balance test, and this is a blood test. And he said that this blood test analyzes your fatty acid profile so that we can ascertain what your omega-3 to omega-6 level is in your blood. Now, to the uneducated on omega-3 and omega-6, basically, when we're born with 1-to-1 omega-3 and omega-6. But as we grow and as we start to ingest the food, obviously, this omega-6 slightly raises. And because today we've got this shocking processed food, man-made foods, we are now ingesting so much more omega-6 than omega-3. So this disparity is getting higher and higher, and the inflammation markers are getting higher and higher on people. And it's the percentage of people that are actually suffering from chronic inflammation caused by the imbalance of omega-3 and omega-6. Now, omega-6 is inflammatory, but it's not the bad guy, because we do need things for inflammation. Like when we cut ourselves, we get acute inflammation, which is where it's healing it. And omega-3, as we probably well know, is an absolutely wonderful food that we all need from the moment we are born to the moment we die. And it obviously has multi-functions in the body for all sorts of metabolic functions, etc. It's excellent for the brain, of course. And these long-chain fatty acids are also really good for exercise and recovery from exercise and general overall health.
I want to explain which food is rich in omega-6 sources and which food is rich with omega-3 sources. So,
well, if I can put it, sorry.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
how much should be the ratio now? And which
Right,
one?
okay.
Yeah.
So what it is omega-6 is a lot of foods, but to just get this in perspective, the reason that we are in the state where we're getting chronic inflammation in our bodies is because we've got too much omega-6, and it's primarily you'll see a lot of vegetable oils like rapeseed oil, palm oil, sunflower oil, all these oils that are now in our foods. In nearly everything you see, you can look at any packet and there'll be some kind of vegetable. They are high in the omega-6.
Yeah.
We need omega-6, but not too much of it. It's the old adage of too much of a good thing. Obviously, omega-3 is obviously in oily fish, but we're not eating enough oily fish. And also, of course, it's sourcing a good source of oily fish. Many of these stuff you see in supermarkets, like the salmon, etc., have been farmed fish, and they've been farmed on pellets. So they're not feeding on the omega-3 rich sea algae, which is where the silverfish get their source of omega-3 from. So they eat the small krill, which are fed on the algae, and that goes through the food chain. And once we ingest the fish, of course, that's where we get our omega-3. So because our diets are so poor now with the man-made food, we're getting far too much omega-6. Now, the WHO prescribed that a value of 3 to 1 or below is in the safe zone.
When I was studying for my diploma for nutritional therapy, the ratio was 2 to 1. So now they increased it to 3 to 1.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Ideally, 2 to 1 is absolutely brilliant, you know.
Well, we can do that. That will be perfect.
Yeah. So basically, when I was introduced to this, I thought, well, okay, this is fantastic. I need to find out what's going on, because I'm relapsing all the time. I'm still not feeling right. And I've been like this for a few years. And I was finding particularly I had no energy. I was fatigued, bit of brain fog, just not good, not able to sleep. I just was not in a very good place. So I thought, right, I need to address this. Okay, I'd like to take the balance test. I've got one of those in front of me. That's the Zinzino balance test.
So this
now this comes in.
Yeah, this test you can do on your own at your home, right?
It is, and I've actually got a little illustration of somebody actually taking the test on this card here. You can see it's just a little finger prick test. That's done in the comfort of one's home. It's drop shipped to the individual.
Like the diabetes test for blood sugar from the finger, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pretty much like that. And it's supplied with a small plunger. It's actually in this packet here, this small plunger here, spring loaded, and obviously you just prick the finger, and then the blood samples are put on a card, which, as you can probably see from this here, there's a small card there, if you can see that, and that has a couple of little circles on, and the 2 blood spots are put onto the 2 circles and filled. That then has a code on it, which is a code which is applicable to the individual. So the blood test is taken, and when the blood test is taken, that code is applicable to that person so that they can fill in the necessary details online. It's and when you do this, the details are specifically just what your gender is, what your age is, your height, your weight, have you taken any omega-3 supplements, etc. They know nothing about you as a person or individual. They've got no data on you whatsoever. The only thing they have is your blood test. Okay,
so you did this test, and what did that show for you that time?
Well, just to let you know, the test is done by an individual independent blood test analysis company called Vitas. They're in Norway, and they do a lot of work for Harvard, hospitals around the world. Some governments use them. I think the WHO have used them. So they're a totally ethical company that have been around for some considerable time. And if you look up Vitas, you'll be able to see their transparency. So my first test was quite shocking. Bearing in mind I should be 3 to 1, it was 31 to 1. Now, 31 to 1 is like being on fire. All my marks were red. Now, obviously, it would be high, and it would be round about the right level, because obviously I had too much of it. So that was a big shock. Now, on those particular elements, what's really significant, well, they're all significant, because the balance obviously of the omega-3, omega-6 was 31:1, which is shocking. But the average person now is 15:1 out of balance, which is shocking as well. That is, the statistics are on the evidence, 98% of the world population, this is going on 660,000 people tested, 98% of them are out of balance. So you could sit in a room of 10 people and most of them, if not all of them, will be out of balance. And this balance is what is leading to people having chronic inflammation in the body. And this chronic inflammatory stress is the driving force for all the diseases and conditions that we're seeing now, not the infectious diseases, but obviously things like your arthritis and your skin conditions and brain problems and even cardiovascular problems. And they do attribute it, some of the cancers, to this as well. So if anybody wants to look up chronic inflammation and look at what they can potentially lead to, it's fairly frightening, you know. And I feel blessed that I was introduced to this to be able to address this before I ended up with one of those terrible ailments. So 31:1. So I commenced what they call the balance oils. Now these balance oils are made of omega-3 and have vitamin D3. And what they do have very importantly in them, because they're obviously extracted fish oils, are the lipophile polyphenols. And these lipophile polyphenols are extracted from pre-harvest olives. Now, these olives are not ripe, but before they're ripe, they're extremely high in the polyphenols. Now, this is a bottle of the balance oil. This is what I have.
So it's a combination of all that, yeah.
So I can tell you how much I take in just a moment because it's significant, because it's applicable to our body weight. But so to explain the polyphenols and significance of that, when most of the fish oils out there that are on the market are, and I have to be careful saying this because obviously it's going to upset a lot of people, but when they make the fish oils, all the ones you see on the market, they extract the fish oil from the fish and they clean the fish. But when they do that and they get rid of all the heavy metals, etc., you know, and any contaminants, they also extract the polyphenols. Once they're gone, that fish oil basically is of no use, because the polyphenol is the bodyguard to the omega-3. Okay, so when the omega-3 goes into the body, the polyphenol will guard that and take it to the cell level and keep it active in your body with up to about 35 hours. All the other stuff without polyphenols will last about 4 to maybe 8 hours maximum, and it will oxidize in your body. That's why sometimes people say, well, I keep repeating, I keep getting fishy burps, I've been taking this fish oil. And it's because it's gone rancid and it's not active. Now, the second side of this is the fact that because obviously your cells, when they get in a state of chronic inflammation, the cell membrane becomes rigid. And when the cell membrane becomes rigid, the toxins inside cannot permeate out. And the nutrition, as good as whatever your nutrition is, cannot permeate into the cell. Maybe a little bit of it will, but the huge percentage of it will not. So you could be taking the best products in the world, you could be eating the best food in the world. If your cell membrane is unable to be permeated and the nutrition's able to be utilized in there, you're up against the brick wall. So this is why the balanced oil is designed to bring down the chronic inflammation, bringing down the level of omega-6, and obviously working on this cell level, because we're basically made of trillions of cells, and every single part of your body is a cell. So that's what it's doing. It's going to the core level and the root cause. So I commenced the oils, and then 6 months later, I took a second test. And so another balance test. And I had my second result, and I was delighted because I felt different after about, I would say about 6 to 8 weeks. I noticed that I wasn't feeling as tired. I wasn't as, shall we say, fatigued. My brain fog had gone quite a bit, and I started to function better. So my second test, though, came down to a fantastic 4.7 to 1. and all my marks had gone from red down to yellow. So the important factors are the cell protection level, which when I had my first test was 0. That come up to about 49%, which wasn't great, but it's still considerably better. My mental strength had increased. My cell membrane fluidity had got considerably better, which enabled me to start taking in the nutrition. And the omega-3 percentage in my blood had increased as well. The target value is usually around about 8% omega-3 in the blood, and mine had gone up to about 4.3. So I'm halfway there, I'm semi-balanced, and I'm feeling a lot better. But I'm still not quite where I want to be. So I said to my friend, I said, look, I'm feeling great, I really am. You know, these oils are fantastic. I've not actually taken any products before that have worked like this. And I do need to emphasize as well that before I took my first test, I was using Omega products for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So those 5 years of taking those Omega products, they didn't work, not at all, because obviously I wouldn't have been 31 to 1 out of balance. So I thought, well, I need to set about completing the whole journey. And to do that, I would like to go on to my next part, which is the gut health. Now, having taken a bone broth, that was fantastic, but I still didn't think I was quite there. And I still had this element of relapsing and thinking, am I still suffering from candida? You know, I'm still sometimes itching a little bit. So
did you have
I went on to the next.
Any gut problems, feeling pain, bloated, some cramps? So what gut issues?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't so much that. It was always going to be the candida and the yeast and the molds were always the problem. So I spoke to my colleague and said, look, this is great. I'm really enjoying this and I'm feeling fantastic. And I've introduced this to my wife, who's had amazing results. I can talk about that in a moment. So, but I said to him, I said, you know, what other products do I do? And I said, you know, because I've had really bad gut health because of antibiotics. And I said, I'm taking everything now, everything's organic, and I cut out all the foods I shouldn't have. Ah, right. He said, well, we've got an absolutely amazing prebiotic. So I said, yeah, I know a bit about prebiotics. Obviously, they create a good environment and flourish the good bacteria, which is obviously what we need. Because I've been feeding with good bacteria, but they've worked for a little while, and then obviously then they've started to subside, and because they're obviously not being fed, as it were, they die away, and I get the problems again. So he introduced me to the next product, same company, and it's called Xenobiotic Fibre Blend of a prebiotic fibres. Mm-hmm. Now, they have various elements in there. It's a prebiotic fibre, and it's very fast working. And I took it, and within a week, I felt different. And I've now been on this for about, I would say, 18 months. And since I've been on this, and my hand is on my heart when I say this, since I've been on this with the balance oils, because the inflammation has come down, and this has created a good microbiome, I have not relapsed back into candida since, not at all.
And how much you're taking from that and from the other product per day?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let me just say, with the balance oil, this is related to your body weight. So you take about, I think it's 0.15 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So that would say that for me, I'm taking 12 mil, which is like a dessert spoon and half again, but we've got a measuring cup which we use. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you want, you bear with me, I'll go and get the measuring cup. I will measure it out and I will show you me taking my balance shot. Is that okay, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
I will say that these come in some really nice flavors, and the one I've got is orange lemon mint. So first thing in the morning, I get my measuring cup.
On empty stomach and once per day?
No, I personally always have my breakfast and have it with food. Uh-huh. Just in case some people are a bit sensitive, they might sort of say, oh, it keeps repeating on me. But I personally just have it with my breakfast. So if I can just find the measurement, there's the 12 mil. I will pour that out. So that there is the amount that I take every single day. 12 ml. Now, if you imagine that these capsules that people buy, if you was to open those capsules up and put them on a spoon, and then put that on a spoon, you can imagine that the quantity of that compared with the quantity of the capsules that people take is significantly higher.
Yeah.
That would you'd probably need to break about 10 capsules open to even get that. Now, this amount here gives me about 1280 milligrams of EPA and about 680 of DHA, which obviously is your omega-3, which is extremely important. And it's got vitamin D3 in it. So I shall take this, I shall show you.
Did you have your breakfast today?
And that's what I do. Now, the prebiotic fibre is just a very fine blend. I can just get this out. As you can see, it's quite a soft powder. And I take a scoop of that every morning. Now, I drink beetroot juice, much to people's horror, but I put it in my beetroot juice, stir it around, have that with my breakfast, and have that balanced oil every single day. And I can tell you, I just did my 4th blood test a week ago, and my results were 3.1 to 1. And I'm literally sitting just on top of the balanced safe zone.
So how do you feel now?
Now, oh, yeah, I can't even tell you how different I am to what I was 2 years ago. It's just, I mean, I even look different now. If you saw me a few years ago,
just go running. You have energy.
Well, I mean, the amazing thing with these balance oils is because obviously they're, as I said, long chain fatty acids. They're great for energy because they use a system called beta oxidation to be broken down and create ATP, which is your energy molecule. And I can train harder and I recover very, very quickly because obviously there's no inflammation there and it's taking down the inflammation. Because obviously when you, if you're breaking down muscle fiber, there's a degree of inflammation. So I find I recover brilliantly. But most importantly, and more importantly than that, is I have to emphasize that being fit and being healthy are two completely and utterly different things. You can go in the gym, you can be working out, you can be running, but inside you don't know whether your body is in a state of chronic inflammation. And this is where the test comes in, the blood test. So you've got a product that's blood test proven, blood test validated and evidence backed. And the evidence is there for you as an individual. And you receive your evidence via email and you get a comprehensive report. I would say that if I hadn't had these elements here, I would probably still be suffering like I was 2 years ago. I would say to anybody, if they're considering their health, to consider looking at this, because I have the evidence to prove that it works from myself. And I also would like to say that my wife, who was suffering from the menopause, she got on the oils, and within 6 weeks she was getting relief, and within 8 weeks her symptoms had gone. Now I know it sounds miraculous, but it's true. Her sister then was also informed of this, and she had been through hell with it because she was on HRT, and she had the same miraculous results. And it's down to this inflammation in the body.
What symptoms did your wife experience
before? She had obviously she had the night sweats, she had the very hot flushes, she had tired, aching legs, no energy, bit of brain fog like I had. Obviously I wasn't going through menopause, but she had brain fog. She just felt not able to function on a normal day. And it was quite unpleasant, and obviously any woman that's been through it will fully sympathize. But I was kind of going, I didn't think this was going to do anything, but I said, look, let's get you on the balance oil, let's get you tested, let's see where you are, because the blood test tells the truth. It's then test-based evidence nutrition rather than guess-based. And she came out 21 to 1, so she was in a state of chronic inflammation as well. And got on the oil. She got a second test that she did it after 6 months, and she'd gone down to 3.6 to 1. And more importantly, she was living a really sort of like symptom-free life from the dreaded menopause. And she's quite categorically said to me, I'm on this now till it's time to go. You know, so I think the blood test evidence says it all. It's something that we need to have evidence to see that it has worked. And we have that. So now my 31 to 1 was pretty awful, but I can tell you that's nothing. We've had test results from certain groups, and there are certain groups that have been as high as nearly 100 to 1. And that is extremely detrimental to your health. Now, I don't want to say...
just want to make sure for everybody that this is not a substitute for implementing healthy lifestyle. So first, we need to change our lifestyle to start living healthy, eat organic, clean food, without processed food, no toxins, exercising, relaxing techniques. And this is just to check where you are at. If you're still not feeling good, you feel that it's not completely right, then you can check this one and use supplements like this one, and to show you where you are and improve your health on a higher level, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. You know, I would advocate to anyone, eat organic food. If you're even going to carry on drinking milk, because dairy is an inflammatory food, isn't it? You know, we see a lot of people with skin problems. That's another thing as well. My daughter and her husband, they had eczema. And once they got on the prebiotic fibre and the balance, or the combination, within 3 weeks they were relieved, and now they don't have any skin problems. Because obviously skin problems, as you well know, Elizabeth, come from the gut. Yeah. So once they'd addressed the gut health and the inflammation, they brought the inflammation down, created a good microbiome, all the problems alleviated, and now they don't have any problems. But yeah, getting back to the diet, advocate organic food always. I would say organic as much as you can. Cut out all the refined sugars, cut out the crap. It doesn't mean to say that you can't have a pizza now and again. Please do, but don't eat it all the time. And I'm a very, very keen fan of drinking as much of this as you can. I try and drink 3 of these bottles a day. So keep a good, healthy diet, keep a good lifestyle. But with the best diet in the world, if your body's in a state of chronic inflammation, you're not going to be able to make the most of that nutrition. So you do need to address the inflammation. And as I said, the balance test will tell you where you are. Yeah. And once you know where you are, you can address the problem with the tools that we've got. There is a little bit of a sweetener there. If you're very lucky and you're one of the 2% of people that don't need it, this company will not take your money. They will tell you to send your supplements back and whatever you've got left, and they will refund your money completely because you don't need it. However, 2% is an extremely small amount. So generally speaking, 98% of us need this.
Yeah. So, people, you know, like Eskimos who live in the, who eat only fish every day.
Yeah, well, of course, the Inuit Eskimos used to just eat fish all the time and blubber, and they were incredibly healthy because they didn't have this man-made food. And sadly, in the UK, 51% of our food ingested is processed food, and this is why we've got an obesity problem and all the problems that we're seeing. And you know, so many people that are now taking medication. You think about people that are over the age of 50. It's kind of a case of how many people over 50 do you know that aren't taking medication? There's not many. Somebody somewhere, you know, will be on a drug or some sort of medication, which can be avoided. This is a preventative strategy. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And this is what I try to help people with. Think of it as a lifestyle strategy. You don't need to be suffering from what you're suffering.
Yeah, so I don't take any medications. I'm 49, and you are not taking any medications, I believe, right?
I take absolutely no medication apart from my balance or my extend and my prebiotic. That's my medication. Pharmaconutrition. Let your food be your medicine. That is the name of a book that I'm reading by Dr. Paul Clayton, who's the science behind this. And it's a wonderful science. So that is how it helped me, and it's helped hundreds of thousands of people. But just one thing before people think, oh no, I can't eat any bad food, I can't have a drink. No, please go and have a drink, have a glass of wine, go out and have some beers, but just try and be clean 75% of the time, and maybe consider your health and having a balance test to just see where you are. Because if you see where you are and you get yourself back to where you need to be, I will emphasize, when you do get to where you need to be and you're back in balance, stay where you are. So I personally am on this now for the rest of my life, and I won't change it, because I don't want to go back to where I was. And I've seen so many people that, you know, have had problems that you can address. I have to say, it's not a magic bullet, it's not a magic cure. We haven't got a cure for this and a cure for that. It's not a cure, it's a prevention, a preventative strategy. However, if you are suffering from chronic inflammation, this will bring it back down to where it should be and alleviate that and get rid of it. So that's pretty much my sort of journey, Elizabeth. I hope that sort of helped you out on that. I don't know if you've got any other questions, really. Yeah. I mean, I would just say to people, think of omega-3 as anti-inflammatory, omega-6 as inflammatory. Too much inflammation is not a good place to be. Get the level or back to a good balance, and then you'll be able to function properly, and you'll feel like a brand new person.
Yes, thank you very much for everything. That's what I wanted to say, because if the people, this is not like a magic bullet, like you said, magic pill, like, okay, I will buy this and I can go back to my old bad habits and drink and eat everything I want. So this will not help, and it will not reduce inflammation. First, establish a good healthy habits, and then you can upgrade and check where you are and improve your health by taking this or that supplement. So this is very good supplement. And thank you very much for sharing your story. And if people want to ask about to get in contact with you, we will put in the description. And thank you very much again.
Okay, Elizabeth, I'm more than happy to have helped, and I hope everybody enjoyed that video and it's helped give a little bit of information. And if anybody can sort of relate to what I've been through from the gut side of things and the inflammation, and they do want to sort of address it, I'll be more than happy to help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.